Hey everyone, my name is Scripted Fear, and welcome to the channel where nightmares don't just stay in your head, I bring them to life. If you love creepy stories, true horror, and the kind of tales that make you double-check your door at night, you're in the right place. Before we dive into today's story, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from, and what time it is where you are. It always creeps me out knowing some of you are listening to this alone in the dark. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get into it. I've been guiding horseback wilderness rides for years, but that morning felt different the second I stepped onto the trail. The clouds hung low over Cedar Ridge like a dirty cotton blanket. Fog curled along the forest floor, hugging the roots and ferns. The kind of morning where the birds are quiet, and even the wind feels like it's holding its breath. My horse, Shadow, wasn't having it either. Normally she's calm as they come, steady, predictable, but that day, she was agitated before we even set off. Her ears pinned back, her tail flicked side to side, nostrils flaring. I chalked it up to nerves. We get elk out here, sometimes the odd cougar. But deep down, something gnawed at me. The air smelled wrong, like damp earth, moss, and something sour beneath it. I was leading a small family from Calgary, a couple and their 2 kids, Sarah and Tom, and their little ones, Lily, maybe 8 or 9, and Jake, the youngest, no more than 6. They seemed excited, all smiles and laughter as they mounted up, new to the mountains, fresh off the city streets, eager for the promised adventure. I gave them the usual safety rundown, smiled, cracked a few jokes to ease the nerves. But I couldn't shake the tightness in my chest as we headed up the trail. The ride started smooth enough. The trees opened up here and there, sunlight trying to burn through the fog. The scent of pine needles filled the air. Birds finally chirped somewhere in the distance, but the forest still felt heavy, like it was watching us. A few miles in, Shadow's behavior worsened. She stopped dead on the trail, ears forward, neck tense, legs locked. Her body practically buzzed under me. I've seen horses react to predators before, but this wasn't just caution. It was fear, pure, quivering fear. I eased her to the side, telling the family to stay put. They looked at me wide-eyed, Tom's hand tightening on his reins, Sarah glancing around nervously. I scanned the trail ahead, eyes cutting through the fog, every muscle in my body tight. That's when I saw it. A shape lumbered out from the tree line maybe 40 meters ahead. At first, I thought it was a large dog, but as it stepped further onto the trail, my heart sank. It was a bear, not just any bear. A cinnamon-colored grizzly, lean and rough-looking. Its coat was patchy, hanging in clumps, ribs visible under the matted fur. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't fattened for winter like most bears this time of year. This one was starving. Desperate, it stopped in the middle of the trail, head swinging slowly side to side, sniffing the air. Its eyes locked onto us like black marbles, unblinking, unreadable. Sarah's voice broke through the stillness, trembling but sharp. "Marco, is that?" "Yeah," I said, barely above a whisper. "It's a bear." Tom's knuckles went white on the reins. The kids froze, their faces pale as paper. Is it coming toward us?" Tom asked. I held up a hand. "Nobody move. Don't run. Just stay calm." Shadow shifted under me, every muscle taut. I could feel her heart pounding through the saddle. The bear took a step forward, then another, its massive claws clicking against the rocky soil. Its movements weren't casual. It wasn't curious. It was sizing us up. I tried the radio clip to my vest. Static. No response. The ridge blocks reception half the time. Figures. The bear stopped, nose lifted again, breathing in our scent. It let out a low, guttural huff that rolled across the trail like thunder. I knew bluff charges. I'd seen videos. But this wasn't a bluff yet. It was a test, and we were failing it by just standing there. "Listen to me carefully," I said, forcing my voice steady. "We need to back up, slowly. Stay together. Make ourselves big. Do not run." Tom nodded stiffly. Sarah clutched Jake's tiny shoulders, her eyes darting between me and the bear. I dismounted, keeping Shadow close, holding her reins tight. She trembled under my hand. We began backing away, step by agonizing step. The bear watched, unmoving. Then, suddenly, it dropped its head, ears pinned, and with a guttural roar, it charged. The world narrowed to that moment. The thunder of its paws, the earth shaking beneath us, the raw, desperate sound of an animal pushed to the edge of survival. The kid screamed. Sarah froze. Tom's face went white. Shadow reared, yanking against the reins. I yelled, my voice cracking through the trees. Make noise. Loud as you can. I stomped my boots, whistled sharp and loud. Tom followed suit, yelling, clapping his hands. Sarah found her voice, shouting, stomping, tears welling in her eyes. The kids wailed, but their high-pitched cries only fueled the chaos. The bear skidded to a stop, dirt flying. It reared onto its hind legs, towering over us, eyes wild, teeth bared. I stood my ground, shaking but rooted. Shadow's hooves danced beneath me. Seconds stretched like hours. The bear let out a final snort, then dropped back onto all fours. Its body heaved, foam clinging to its jaws. It stared at us for one long, unbearable moment. Then it turned, lumbered back toward the trees, vanishing into the mist. No one spoke for a long time. The only sound was our ragged breathing, the distant caw of a crow, and the whisper of the wind creeping back to life. I counted heads. Everyone was still there. Alive. Shaken, but alive. I ran a trembling hand down Shadow's neck, whispering thanks under my breath. We weren't out of the woods yet, not even close. But in that moment, I knew we'd gotten a second chance. And not everyone gets one of those in the mountains. I don't think I'll ever forget the sound of that bear's growl. It wasn't just a noise, it was a vibration that rattled through my bones, low and guttural, like the forest itself was alive and angry. For a moment, nobody moved. The guide, Logan, had his hand raised in that stop signal again, but this time his knuckles were white, and I could see the tendons in his wrist twitching. The horses were frozen, but their ears pinned back flat against their skulls, and I could feel my mare trembling beneath me. The bear stood maybe 30 yards away, half hidden behind a deadfall of splintered pine. Its eyes were fixed on us, dark and glinting in the shadows, its massive shoulders rolling as it shifted its weight. It wasn't charging, not yet, but it wasn't running off either. It was watching, waiting. Logan whispered, just loud enough for us to hear. Stay still. Keep your eyes down. No sudden moves. His voice cracked at the edges, and that alone scared me more than the bear. But it wasn't just the bear that unsettled me. It was the silence. The forest, which had been alive with birds and insects, had gone dead quiet. No wind, no leaves rustling, just stillness. Something was off. The bear finally huffed and lumbered away into the undergrowth, disappearing behind a ridge. But the tension in the air didn't lift. Logan let out a shaky breath, turning his horse around to face us. All right, he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. We're gonna take the lower trail back toward the main road. It's longer, but safer. We all nodded, too shaken to argue. As we turned onto the lower trail, I noticed the guide's hand hovering near the bear spray on his belt, his eyes scanning the tree line constantly. That's when I realized something else. We weren't going back the way we came. The trail dipped into a narrow ravine, steep walls rising on either side, thick with moss and brambles. The trees leaned in overhead, casting deep shadows that made it hard to tell what time of day it was. It felt wrong, like this path wasn't used often. The ground was uneven, overgrown in places, and there were no hoof prints ahead of us. I eased my horse up alongside Logan. You sure this is the lower trail? I asked, keeping my voice low. Logan hesitated, eyes darting to the ridge behind us, then down the path. It connects to the lower trail eventually, he said, avoiding eye contact. Just stay close. That's when I noticed the scratches. Deep gouges along the tree trunks, some of them fresh, bark stripped away and wide, jagged swipes. At first, I thought it was from the bear, but the claw marks were wrong. Too long, too high up, and there were symbols. Faint carvings hidden among the scratches, strange symbols etched into the bark. Circles, lines intersecting at odd angles, some resembling crude stick figures with heads shaped like horns or antlers. I slowed my horse to look closer, but Logan barked at me to keep moving. The others were quiet now, their eyes wide, their bodies tense. Even the horses seemed spooked, their ears flicking, hooves clattering nervously against the rocks. The ravine narrowed, the walls pressing in, and the trees grew so dense overhead that it felt like we were riding through a tunnel. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something sour, metallic, like blood. That's when we heard it. A low, rhythmic knocking sound echoing through the ravine. Not natural. It wasn't woodpeckers or branches creaking. It was deliberate, like someone tapping two rocks together. Knock, knock, knock. It sent chills racing down my spine. We rounded a bend, and that's when we saw them. Tied to a tree ahead was what looked like an animal's skull bleached white, antlers twisted and broken, with strips of faded red cloth dangling from its horns. More symbols carved into the bark surrounding it. The knocking stopped. Logan's face drained of color. "We need to turn around," he muttered, his voice trembling now. But before anyone could react, a scream ripped through the forest, raw, panicked, human. It came from somewhere ahead, deeper in the ravine. It wasn't any of us. The horses reared and bucked, nearly throwing us. Logan struggled to keep his own mount under control, his eyes wild, scanning the darkened path ahead. I gripped the reins tight, heart pounding, that sour, metallic scent thick in my nostrils. Another scream, this time closer, then silence. The forest watched us, and I knew we weren't alone. The sun wasn't even up yet when I saddled Mist. The others back at base camp were still asleep, their tents zipped tight, campfire embers cold and gray. I wanted the quiet. Just me, my horse, and the open wilderness. Mist was my 5-year-old bay Mustang, sharp-eyed, lean, tougher than any domestic horse I'd ever ridden. She wasn't fancy, but she had heart, and more importantly, she had mountain sense. The plan was simple: a short solo ride up Wolverine Ridge, follow the western trail past the lake overlook, loop back before noon. I'd done it dozens of times before, but that morning, I don't know, something in the air felt different. Heavy, still, but I shrugged it off. The narrow trail twisted upward, lined with ponderosa pines and sharp, sun-bleached rocks jutting like teeth from the earth. I let Miss take her time, hooves clinking on loose gravel, the faint creak of leather and saddle straps filling the cool morning air. Birdsong echoed faintly from deeper in the trees. About 2 miles in, I paused at a familiar clearing. The land dropped away in a steep slope, revealing the valley floor hundreds of feet below. A sea of fog filled the basin, curling around the trees like smoke. The sun was barely breaking over the ridge, casting everything in a soft orange glow. I dismounted, loosening Mist's girth and letting her graze. I pulled out my water bottle, took a slow sip, and let the silence soak in. There's a certain peace out there, just you, your horse, and the wild. No buzzing phones, no schedules, just space to breathe. I remember thinking how lucky I was to be alone, but that feeling didn't last. A rustle in the underbrush snapped Mist's head up. Her ears swiveled, nostrils flaring. My heart skipped. Probably a deer, I thought. Maybe a rabbit. But then I heard it, a sharper crack. Branches breaking. Something bigger. Before I could even react, Mist danced sideways, spooked. I grabbed the reins, whispering, "Easy, girl, easy." But her muscles tensed like cold springs. The whites of her eyes showed. And then it happened, a blur of motion. She spun, hooves scrambling, and I lost my footing. I felt myself falling in slow motion, the ground rushing up, sharp rocks and dirt blurring together. My shoulder hit first, then my back. My left foot twisted awkwardly as I landed hard. A jolt of pain shot through my ankle, bright and searing. I remember gasping, the wind knocked from my lungs. Above me, Mist bolted, her hooves pounding the trail as she disappeared down the slope, reins flapping wildly. Panic surged through me as I tried to sit up. The world tilted, spinning sickeningly. My ankle, The pain was unreal. It wasn't just twisted. I knew in my gut it was broken. I was alone, injured, miles from camp. No cell signal. No one knew I'd gone this far. I bit my lip, blinking back the sting of tears as reality set in. This wasn't a quick ride anymore. It was survival, and the day was far from over. The first hour after the fall was a blur of pain and frustration. I tried standing. Stupid idea. The moment I put weight on my left foot, my vision swam with stars and a bolt of agony shot up my leg. I collapsed back onto the dirt, cursing under my breath. Mist was gone. The ridge trail was empty. No hoofbeats. No snort in the distance. Nothing but the quiet whisper of the pines and the occasional cry of a hawk circling overhead. Panic simmered in my chest. I forced it down. This was the wilderness. Panicking would only get me killed. I checked my backpack. Half-full water bottle. A protein bar. Small first aid kit. But no radio. I'd left it back at camp, thinking I wouldn't be gone long. Stupid. Looking at my swollen ankle, the way it'd been at that awkward angle, I knew hiking back wasn't happening. But crawling, maybe. The only option was to drag myself down the ridge trail and hope to intersect the lower fire road. Maybe someone would come along. Maybe Mist would double back. I splinted my ankle with a broken pine branch, tore strips from my shirt to bind it, and gritted my teeth. Then I started crawling. The dirt and gravel tore at my palms and knees. Every rock jabbed into my skin. The sun climbed higher, heating the ridge. Sweat trickled down my back. Flies buzzed relentlessly around my face. Minutes blurred into hours. My limbs ached. My throat burned. But I kept moving. By mid-afternoon, I made it to a narrow bend where the trail overlooked the valley again. I collapsed under a lone pine, panting, my entire body trembling. That's when I saw the tracks. Hoof prints. Fresh. Mist. Relief crashed over me. But something wasn't right. I crawled closer, studying the ground. The hoof prints weren't alone. Scattered beside them were wide, shallow prints, boot prints. Human. My heart twisted. There wasn't supposed to be anyone else up here. The only other riders were miles away, sticking to the eastern trails. I was sure of it. I strained my ears, listening. A faint metallic clink, like spurs, or maybe tack jingling. Voices? No, just the wind. Suddenly, the hairs on my neck stood up. That feeling, like I wasn't alone. Dragging myself upright against the tree trunk, I peered down the trail. And there, emerging around the bend, was Mist, reins dangling, eyes wide. Leading her was a man, tall, thin, dressed in dusty ranch gear, denim shirt, beat-up Stetson, leather gloves. But it wasn't just his appearance that chilled me. It was the way he moved. Slow, deliberate. His head tilted slightly, as if listening for something. But what really froze me in place was his eyes. Pitch black. No whites. Just endless, glossy black, like a predator's, flat and emotionless. My breath caught. He spotted me instantly. His lips curled into a crooked smile, revealing yellowed teeth. "Well now, you look like you could use a hand," he drawled. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. I should have been relieved to see another human. But every instinct screamed the opposite. Mist reins dangled loosely in his gloved hand, but she didn't fight. Her body language was off, head low, eyes darting nervously. "Wreck your ankle, did ya?" the stranger asked, stepping closer. His boots crunched over the dry pine needles. I swallowed hard, heart hammering. I couldn't run, could barely crawl. And something about this man wasn't right. The empty eyes. That smell, like old leather and something rotten underneath. "Stay back," I rasped, voice hoarse. He chuckled, low and humorless. "Oh no, don't be like that. I was just passing through, happened upon your horse, figured I'd help out." My eyes darted to the trail behind him. No sign of anyone else. Just the silent pines stretching endlessly. "Who are you?" I demanded, forcing steel into my voice. But he didn't answer. Just kept smiling that crooked, unsettling grin. And deep down, I knew I wasn't alone on this mountain. But help wasn't what this stranger had in mind. For a moment, the ridge fell silent. except for the whisper of wind through the pines. The stranger just stood there, watching me, head cocked like a curious crow, black eyes glittering with something ancient and wrong. I needed a plan. Fast. The only weapon I had. Mist. And my wits. I shifted my weight, biting back the pain radiating from my ankle. My hand slid slowly toward a jagged rock beside me. Not much, but better than nothing. The man took another step. His boots barely disturbed the trail dust, like he weighed nothing at all. "You know," he said, voice low and syrupy, "there's something about these mountains. They don't let folks leave, not always." My fingers closed around the rock. My pulse thundered in my ears. "Who are you?" I asked again, but the words felt thin, pointless. The stranger smiled wider, revealing a glimpse of something sharp and unnatural behind his yellowed teeth. His eyes, they didn't just look black. They absorbed the light, swallowing it whole. "I've been out here longer than you've been breathing, darling," he whispered. "Long enough to know when someone don't belong." His hand twitched toward Mist's reins. That's when Mist moved. It was subtle, the flick of an ear, the shifting of her weight. But I knew her, and I knew that look, defiance. The moment his grip slackened, Mist reared, a flash of muscle and hoofs cutting through the pine-shadowed trail. The man snarled, reaching for her bridle, but I moved first. With every ounce of strength, I hurled the rock. It struck him square across the temple. His head snapped sideways, but no blood bloomed. No reaction, except a twisted, guttural laugh that crawled under my skin like ice. But Mist's moment was all I needed. She bolted. The reins ripped from his hand, and suddenly she was at my side, nostrils flaring, eyes wide. "Atta girl," I hissed through clenched teeth, hauling myself upright with her help. Pain lanced through my leg, but adrenaline drowned most of it. The stranger straightened. His smile was gone now, replaced by something worse, hunger. "You ain't leaving," he whispered, voice coiling through the trees like smoke. But I was already moving, or rather, Mist was, dragging me along as I scrambled onto her back, clinging awkwardly, my ankle screaming in protest. She spun, hooves tearing into the trail, and we shot forward, away from the ridge, away from the black-eyed man. Branches slapped my face. The world blurred. But I held on, feeling her strength beneath me, the wild energy that no rider could truly tame. Behind us, the stranger's voice echoed, soft, amused. "You'll be back." But his words faded beneath the thunder of hoofs. Mist carried me down the mountain, through dense underbrush, over rocks and fallen logs. My vision swam, pain clawing at the edges of my mind. But I couldn't stop. Not until we broke through the tree lean onto the fire road. And there are headlights. A pickup truck parked by the ranger station. Relief nearly buckled me. The ranger's eyes widened when he saw me slumped atop Mist, bloody, dirt-streaked, barely conscious. He helped me down, radioed for medics. His voice was calm, professional, but when I described the man on the ridge, the black eyes, the smell, his face paled. "You're lucky," he muttered, glancing toward the shadowed mountains behind us. Folks VE been whispering about him for years. Nobody who meets the Hollow Man comes back down. I shivered, teeth chattering, as Mist nuzzled my shoulder. But I had come back, and so had Mist. The wild was still untamed. And whatever that thing was up there, it wasn't finished with me. But neither was I finished with it. The mountains remember. And next time, I'd be ready. I never thought much about fear. Not real fear. Not the kind that crawls up your spine and coils in your gut like a living thing. But all that changed the night my wife, Marisol, and I rode out into the dunes of Crimson Sands, Arizona. It was supposed to be a quiet evening. Just us, the desert, and the cool breath of twilight settling over the sand. That place, God, it looked beautiful at sunset. The way the light bled across the dunes, turning everything gold, then crimson as the sun dipped below the jagged ridges. It was easy to forget what Crimson Sands was really known for. Disappearances, buried secrets, missing tourists. The locals had their theories, smugglers, cartel dumps, cult rituals. But no one really wanted to know. Marisol and I, we always thought we were smarter than that. We stayed near the marked trails, rode our horses, admired the view, then went home before dark. Simple, safe, until that night. We had pushed farther than usual, caught up in the warm air and the rhythm of the horses. Bane, my stallion, was eager, snorting, pawing at the sand, while Marisol's mare, Solstice, trailed behind, steady and calm. "You hear that?" she asked suddenly, pulling up on the reins. At first, I thought it was just the wind. The desert talks at night, little whispers through the mesquite and dry grass. But this wasn't wind. It was faint, metallic, deliberate. Clink, thud, pause. Again, clink, thud. It was unmistakable. Someone was digging. A knot tightened in my chest. "Probably just campers," I muttered, but my voice sounded thin, uncertain. Marisol's eyes, dark and sharp, searched the horizon. "No one's allowed to camp out here." Remember, she was right. The park rangers kept this stretch locked down. Too many accidents, too many missing persons reports stacking up over the years. I should have turned us around right then. But curiosity, it's a dangerous thing. We tied the horses behind a thorny patch of creosote and moved toward the sound. The sand shifted under our boots, soft and uneven. The sky above us was deep purple now, scattered with the first faint stars. The digging grew louder with every cautious step. Clink, thud, clink, thud. Something felt wrong. The desert was quiet, too quiet. No crickets, no rustle of small animals in the brush. Just that cold, steady sound of earth being shoveled aside. We crested a small dune and froze. There, under a flickering lamplight, a figure was bent over the sand. Tall, broad-shouldered, face hidden by a wide-brimmed hat pulled low. At their feet, a long, black plastic tarp, rope coiled neatly beside it. A shallow grave, half-finished, gaped open in the sand. I didn't need to see what was inside that tarp to know. I've seen enough true crime shows. My blood turned to ice. "Ethan," Marisol's whisper trembled. I grabbed her hand, ready to retreat, but it was too late. The figure straightened. The shovel hit the ground with a hollow clang. For a breathless second, everything stopped. Then, the beam of a flashlight cut through the dark, sweeping across the dunes straight toward us. I shoved Marisol behind a rock outcrop, pressing her down into the sand. We held our breath as the flashlight's beam danced over the ridge where we had stood seconds before. The figure's voice broke the silence. Deep, gravelly, low, angry Spanish words I couldn't catch, but the meaning was clear. They weren't alone out here, and they weren't burying trash. Our horses, restless and spooked, shifted in the shadows. Bane's snort echoed in the quiet. The figure turned toward the sound, flashlight locking onto the spot where we'd left the horses. Then came the footsteps. Heavy, fast, crunching through the sand, closing in. I grabbed Marisol's hand, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. We bolted, scrambling down the ridge, the flashlight's glow chasing us. In the distance, I heard an engine start, the deep growl of a truck roaring to life. I didn't have time to wonder how many of them there were. All I knew was that we had to run, and pray we weren't already too late. It didn't take long to spot them. Under a lone lamplight, a figure hunched over what looked like a shallow grave. Beside it, something wrapped in thick black tarp. Even in the dark, I could tell what it was. A body. My stomach twisted. "We should go," I whispered. But before we could, the figure stopped digging. They turned, flashlight sweeping across the sand toward us. We ducked behind a rocky outcrop, holding our breath. Our horses, Bane and Solstice, were restless, hoof shifting, nostrils flaring. Then, Bane let out a sharp bark like whinny. The figure snapped toward the sound. A voice cut through the night, angry, sharp, words I couldn't understand. A metal clang as the shovel hit the ground. Then footsteps. Fast. Heavy. They were coming. I grabbed Marisol's hand, and we ran. We bolted for the horses. The figure's flashlight danced wildly behind us, growing closer. Our hearts pounded as we vaulted into the saddles and kicked the horses into a dead sprint. The desert came alive with the sound of hooves and our ragged breathing. Behind us, the figure was yelling, getting closer. And then an engine. A truck roared to life somewhere behind the dunes. I looked back. Headlights appeared on the ridge. They weren't letting us go. We rode harder than we ever had before. The dunes blurred under the moonlight. Marisol's voice cracked through the wind. "He's following us." Bane and Solstice galloped like their lives depended on it, because they did. I heard tires crunching sand behind us, the truck's headlights bouncing closer. My heart was about to burst when Solstice stumbled, nearly sending me flying. I caught myself, pain ripping through my shoulder, but there was no time to stop. We pressed on. Finally, lights in the distance. The ranch. Highway 85. We raced toward it, hoping, praying. The moment we broke through the final ridge, ranch hands saw us. Flashlights, shouts, safety. The truck screeched to a halt at the tree lane. The figure stayed in the shadows, watching. He didn't follow, not with witnesses there. By morning, police had uncovered a burial site. Dozens of bodies. Black tarps, half buried under the sand. The kind of horror stories you hear on the news, except this was real. They said the area had been used for human trafficking for years. That the desert out here hides things most folks don't want to find. We were lucky. We could have ended up under that tarp. Since that night, I don't ride after dark. Crimson Sands looks peaceful under the stars, but it's not. It never was. The desert keeps its secrets. And sometimes, those secrets come after you.